Welcome to Successfully Simple, the creative entrepreneur's guide to working less and living more. I'm your host, Erin Flynn, and I've been running my creative business since 2012, and now I'm sharing everything I can to help you along your journey. On this podcast, we'll be diving into ways that you can find the support that you need, simplify your business so that you can work less while still hitting your goals, create a signature service with consistent income, systematize your business so that it runs smoothly, and sell without feeling sleazy. Let's dive into today's episode. Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. Today I am here with Kyla Roma. Now Kyla is a marketing strategist and founder of the Uncomplicated Marketing Academy. She has spent the last decade helping hundreds of online business owners take back their time and level up their income. Kyla is also a toddler mom and her family's breadwinner. She's worked with everyone from six-figure entrepreneurs and Big Ten universities to artists and course creators. Now, Kyla wishes that all business owners knew that you do not have to love marketing to attract an audience that cannot wait to buy from you and for you to have fun doing it. Welcome back to the show, Kyla. I'm excited to have you back to talk more about marketing.
Thank you so much for having me.
So you've been on the show before and we've talked about, different marketing things, but today we're going to go a little bit more in depth. The last time it was kind of a bigger overview. And today we're going to dive in a little bit deeper into marketing. So one of the first things I want to talk about is how we feel like we have to do all of the things on all of the social media and be absolutely everywhere. Should we be trying to do this? Should we not be trying to do this? What should we be trying to do?
I mean, personally, I think we should be trying to keep our lives, humane. So for most of the people that I work with, my clients, marketing is a small piece of the pie in terms of how they spend their time. And it's really not their favorite kind of pie, and social media is just a little fraction of that. So I think that it can feel really overwhelming because, we maybe are learning from people who are so pumped about social media and we get caught up in the excitement and then feel like, gosh, I might be missing out on opportunities. I think in reality, if we spread ourselves too thin and go and try to, just kind of plaster content everywhere without doing the deeper work of, looking at what helps us to grow and actually doing engagement, that actually creates worse results than focusing on a couple of places that you actually enjoy and you're actually curious about. So my bias is always towards keeping things simple. I'm a mom to a very rambunctious 3-year-old. It's rare that I have time where he's not, climbing me like I'm a human tree. So I like to keep things as simple as possible, really master a couple of places and then just breathe and picture the ocean anytime I feel like I'm missing out on opportunities in other places.
I love that. And I think last time that we chatted, we talked about doing all of the things, including Periscope and then having different content for all of these different social media platforms and how exhausting that was back in the day and how we don't do that anymore. But let's say that we're someone who is currently trying to be everywhere because that's kind of what we're told to do. And so, we've got 50 accounts trying to post on each one of them every day. How do we discover which of those accounts are actually doing something for us and which we're wasting our time on?
Definitely. So a really, I think, an important first point is just to slow down and get curious. If you want to, and being curious at all about what's working for you and what's not is you're already ahead of the game. You've slowed down enough that you're not just, putting content out there and then, hoping that it's going to work for you. So getting curious about this is really helpful. Truly knowing what actually gets you results can be just a dramatic help for you. Every time you kind of cross something off of your list that isn't getting you results, you're basically, increasing the hourly rate that you're making for yourself, if you want to think of it that way. I'd also, just encourage people to remember that this isn't unknowable. So marketing, and posting on social media, it always works. So by that, I mean, you're always going to get a result. Now you get to choose whether or not you know about it. But it is always working. So there's lots of information. what I would say to, to overall, I think a great place to start if you're not sure and you're feeling uncertain is to go to the big picture. So go to Google Analytics, if you don't have that set up for your business, it's okay. That's not your secret shame. I would just go, install that on your website, then just continue as is for a little bit so you can get some data. But then go to your Google Analytics and look at where are people actually coming from so that you can see, you can see exactly what your social referrals are. So that's telling you how many people are coming to your site from different social media places. It's a silly thing, but make sure that you adjust your dates so you can look at the last 3 months or the last 6 months or the last year. But get a sense of exactly how many people are coming from which social media platforms, because oftentimes I find that the thing I'm excited about and energized about, that has more to do with me than it has to do with the actual numbers of how people are finding me.
All right. So I know here's the other problem I think a lot of people have is, so we maybe invest all of this time into something like Pinterest or Instagram or Twitter or whatever it is. It doesn't matter what the platform is. Some platforms work for some people, some don't. But we invest all of this time because we either love the platform or we were told this is the platform that we have to be on. And we get this sunk cost fallacy of like, I've put all of this time and all of this effort into this, and it's not paying off. So how do we stop doing something because we feel like we've, again, invested the time or the money or whatever it is into this thing that we were sure was going to work, and then when we look at the data, it's absolutely not converting? How do we stop doing that, or do we stop doing that? What do we do?
Definitely. Really what that is it's as we, just as people, as we put more time and energy into something, it could be anything, the more then we perceive it to be valuable. So it can be, you could see this around a hobby, for example, or maybe you had a high school relationship or anything, it really can and truly can be anything. But like you're saying, around social media, we can get attached to these ideas of what was supposed to work. And then instead of responding to the facts on the ground, we're kind of looking at this idea of, man, I wasted all this time. If I don't, I've put all this time and energy into it. If I stop now, then that was all a waste. Something that I think I guess the short answer is, put the phone down, delete the bookmark, step away from the computer. I do think it really, I think being decisive about it and making a choice to actively switch over to something else is the strongest position that you can be in, because that's time and energy that you can recoup and you can put into something else. And it's something, if you know for sure that something's getting you a very, very low return, there are like higher return things that you could be doing in your business for sure. So I personally think that that's a great, that's what I would do. And that's what I have done, but I think it's important to remember that the time and energy that you've put in, it hasn't been wasted. It has allowed you to, maybe become a better writer, work on your time management, know what works for you and what doesn't in your business. And really, it's really allowed you to level up to be who you are right now. And that person is who you want driving your business, not the person from a year ago or 6 months ago who said, oh, I think this will probably work. And then, if that hasn't borne out, you want this version of yourself to be able to make the call. And they can do that without invalidating that other person. That other version of you was making the best call they could with the information that they had. Now that's your job, and you can absolutely step into that.
Awesome. So so we look at those things and we say, okay, this is not working. Do you have a good way to calculate how much time we're spending versus how much, we're getting back in return? Is there a magical formula or way that you do that?
I mean, I would love if there is. I think it really varies for everybody. I know when I first started out in blogging, I would spend the entire weekend pretty much sitting down on my computer. I would comment on other people's blogs, and then I would comment on the commenters of their blogs. And I would do that like it was the most intense reality show. Like it was like, I was so fascinated by it and I would pour time and energy into it. And now you couldn't pay me. It's a funny thing. Like, so it really, it depends on what your what your time and your energy is like, and what your focus is and what your goals are. That being said, I think really what you want to look at, I think, is beating your own personal best and looking at, are you making progress against that? Instead of comparing out or looking at, I'm sure you could say, like, ideally, if you're getting in front of people who aren't necessarily on your email list or people who are new to you, around 2 to 3% conversion rate overall in general in marketing is like a benchmark that you could look for. I don't know how useful that is necessarily to your, on a day-to-day basis. It feels really abstract to me. So I would use your instincts, but then I would look at, on a post by post basis, what's actually happening. So over time, like if you looked at the average number of likes or comments that you've had on your posts, let's say over the last month, how are you doing relative to a year ago? How are you doing relative to 6 months ago? What changes are you seeing in terms of people who are following you? Are you able to take a look at how many people are, clicking through over to your site if you're asking for that? I think looking at that kind of those metrics can really make a big difference. And I would also add into that to say, looking at how well you are moving people from comments or, kind of general public engagement over towards messaging with you, over towards building relationships. That's the big piece that I find so many people really struggle with, especially if you don't have internet friends yet, or if if you're mostly listening to podcasts and then kind of focusing on publishing content, but getting into actual conversations with people still feels awkward or weird or like kind of creepy. If that's you, then I would really focus on looking at how you can start building more of those relationships with people. And eventually, even if it's just if you're on Instagram, for example, like replying to other people's stories with a genuine comment and asking a question, that kind of a thing can really start real relationships. And that's where you can start to make a big difference, and you can start to have more of that personal relationship. And that can lead to referrals. It can lead to, asking for resources. It can rather like asking if somebody is looking to find somebody or looking for a tool or struggling with something in their work, and jumping onto into masterminds or onto quick coffee chats to talk with people who are your ideal clients. Things can kind of blossom from there, but it doesn't happen just by leaving like a heart or love this comment. So I think it's difficult because the advice that's out there, it can seem like, well, that's what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm supposed to be commenting and publishing, but we really need to go a little bit deeper if you want to get more momentum from your social media.
Hey there, really quick before we get back to the episode, if you want to create your own Successfully Simple business, you need to join my premium program. The Successfully Simple Shortcut is an intentionally small group program and community of service-based creative entrepreneurs who want to work less and live more. Inside the shortcut, you'll learn exactly how to implement the 5 pillars that are crucial to your success: support, simplify, sell, signature, and systematize. But not only that, you'll also get the support and the feedback that you need to truly define success on your own terms and move the needle in your business. This is not a course, it's a training and community to help your business thrive. Doors open a few times a year, so head to erinflynn.com/shortcut right now to join or to get on the waitlist and be first in line when the doors open again. That's erinflynn.com/shortcut. All right, now let's get back to the show.
Awesome. I love that. And I think that's one of the things, the general advice is just so vague that you get all of those, well, at least on Instagram, you get like all of those bots that just like leave hearts or whatever on the posts or, answer like your question things in stories in ways that don't make any sense, because that's how you market and that's how you connect with people, and it's absolutely not true. And so having that, deeper connection is what is really being looked for, especially I think for service providers who are offering a high ticket item or, service that is, something that is going to take some nurturing and leading up. You can't just, throw up a post or comment with hearts and then magically expect someone to drop $5,000 or $10,000 with you. That's not going to convert them in any way, shape, or form. It's more likely to just annoy them.
Definitely. And if you feel like, gosh, I don't have bandwidth for that, I would really think about like, well, what does the time that you're spending marketing look like? Are you focusing so much on publishing that you don't have time for that? Like, personally, I would rather somebody publish like once a week to an Instagram or something like LinkedIn, and then just spend 15 minutes a day of actually leaving specific, specific kind, genuine comments on other people's content. Look at the opportunities to share out and highlight what other people are doing. And I think if you can think about what would be delightful if you received that, like how would you feel if somebody took one of your posts and then maybe, I'm thinking of Instagram, shared that to their story and then shared a video about like why they thought that was so neat and why people should follow you. Like, that would be incredible, right? Well, why don't you shine that light on other people and then give them an opportunity to feel that? That's memorable. That's something you could do even just once a week or once every other week. And you can be really, I don't know, it doesn't have to be, if that feels really dramatic, then it doesn't have to be that way. Or if you feel like video is really scary, then it doesn't have to be that. But like looking for opportunities to make an impact and make a genuine connection, that is what actually goes the distance and what gets you remembered.
That leads perfectly into ramping up what is working. So let's say that we find a platform or a method on a platform that seems to be working really well for us. How do we then either set aside the time or the energy or both and, kind of like really focus in on making that like the best that it can be? Is there like a magical pill that we can take that makes the marketing part easy?
Wouldn't that be great?
That would be.
I think aside from outsourcing it, I don't think that really exists. I would look at, if you're seeing that you're getting more traction, then I would start to think about like, what are the things that you're doing on that platform that you feel like are getting you results? Like, if you can start to play with them, kind of be a scientist with your time. So is it that you've been doing engagement, for X amount of time every day, like, and play with that and see, well, maybe if I add like another 10 minutes to that, what happens? Do I start to notice, is it that I start to notice this impact? You can start to play with things. Notice, I think so much of this really, it sounds inane, but like really you've got to, if you're slowing down and looking at what's happening, you're so far ahead of the game. So if you notice that like you get more comments on silly posts that you do, like where you're just kind of really being lighthearted and goofy, then that's really important to notice. That's something that your people are responding to. So how can you take maybe that spirit or that looseness and then apply that to something else? So I think, looking at the feelings that are behind what you're doing and the, either like what you're helping people with or the feeling that you're creating in it, I think that can be a really great way of looking at, oh, this is the thing that's interesting to people, and kind of just looking for ways that you can do more of that.
I love that. And then one of the things like that I've noticed with my audience personally is they love geeky things. So like when I talk about things like sunk cost fallacy or the emotional cycle of change, and I put these things like, into whatever, it doesn't matter what platform, they just, whatever platform I'm on, they like it. And so I'm like, oh yes, like I have people who like really speak my language and love all of these like really nerdy things and understanding how they work, and that, there's a reason and the studies behind the like why we do what we do. And so for me, like doubling down on that has like been very recent, but I've noticed, tons more saves and shares and people just like commenting like crazy. And so I think I finally found like my little like in with everybody, where I thought before oh, nobody's interested in this stuff except people like me and Kyla, right? Like nobody else cares about these things. And so I think, experimenting, like you've kind of talked about, is everything's kind of an experiment, and just seeing what you get the responses for and you gain traction on. I think that allows you to try things that maybe you wouldn't, like I would have, a year ago, never posted about things like the emotional cycle of change, because I would have been like, nobody cares about this. But just having that freedom to experiment has now allowed me to open the door to, oh my gosh, like this is really cool. People want to geek out with me about these different studies. So it's been really fun.
I love that. Yeah. Something that I have is literally just a note in my phone, and it's like, my like ideal client, but it's like theories on my ideal client. So I have kind of more detailed ideas of who I know my people to be. But then what I also have is this kind of like working theories, if you want to get really geeky, like a working theories spot where I can see like, oh, I think, I'll notice something like that and go, oh, well, for me, it's been like, I always thought that talking about the mindset pieces behind, the psychology behind success and behind habits and behind why things work and why we do the things we do, that was something that I was into and that would totally alienate the people that I was, that I was speaking to, my audience and my subscribers. But I noticed as I started talking about that, people's ears really perked up, and I got really interesting comments back, and people were replying to my emails, and I was getting DMs. And so I would add that in, like, oh, they're really curious about the psychology of this, and they're so curious about thinking, and they think about thinking. And so I'll make a note, and a lot of it is like question mark, so, but it's been a fun way for me to look at that and go, oh, okay, well, if I add a reference in something that I'm doing, if I add a reference to Buffy the Vampire Slayer or to Parks and Rec or The Good Place, oftentimes the people that I like that are in my audience, their ears perk up, and they get really curious about it. And so I can add a little note about that and say, oh, I think they're kind of, they grew up watching these kinds of shows, or that like that's kind of where their focus is. So, or like things that they love and are nostalgic about. So it can be a fun place for you to as those things, like, again, trust your instincts as you see those things, but make a note of them so that you can, you can kind of circle back and test that out and see if that starts to bear out, and then use it.
I love that. Now that also kind of like leads into, you have some great kind of like swipe files or like examples of like, what do you call them? A teardown library of fantastic marketing, which taps into kind of like these connections with audiences. Can you tell us more about this?
Oh, for sure. So you can go to kylaroma.com/teardown, and it's called like the free Uncomplicated Marketing Teardown Library. So these are like tiny little snippets of like interesting social media posts that I see, or what somebody's doing on a website, and I basically grab these anyways. I'm so curious about them. I love when I see them, somebody doing like an interesting use of Instagram, or using their homepage in a really fascinating way. And what I started doing a while ago for my clients was I would just screen record me talking about why something was working, what I thought was interesting about it, and then how my clients could apply it to their own social media. And it was something that got such great responses, and people were so curious about, that I decided to make it like a free public place. So it's basically my swipe file of like super interesting content. And what I try to do as well is break down like not just why it works and why it's interesting, but then how could you take this and apply it? So what are kind of the steps that you would need to follow, or like what are the kind of phrases or that you would say? It's kind of like if it's, I try to get really granular, because I'm an enthuser. I get very excited about this stuff, and it's hard for me to hold back.
These kinds of teardowns were one of like my favorite things that you would put out because they were such a cool way of looking at things.
No way. Oh my gosh, that makes my whole day. Thank you so much. I love hearing that.
I love it. So we will definitely make sure that links to that free resource is available so everybody can go and start to figure out like all of these teardowns and, see how you do everything. Because I think it's so helpful. It's made a big difference in my marketing, and I'm sure anybody listening will love it too. But where else can we find and follow you online?
Definitely. So you can find that free library at kylaroma.com/teardown, or you can come to my site and subscribe to my newsletter. I've been really focused on email and writing really high quality content and really helpful content over there. You can also follow me on Instagram at Kyla Roma or on Pinterest. I'm pretty much everywhere at Kyla Roma.
I will make sure we've got links to everything in the show notes. Thank you so much for joining us, Kyla. This has been fun.
Thanks so much for having me.
All right, everyone, I will see you in the next episode.
Thanks so much for tuning in. Any links mentioned in this episode will be included in the show notes. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe on whatever platform you like to listen to podcasts on. And if you really enjoyed the show, please take 2 minutes to leave me a review so that others can find the show and create their own successfully simple business. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next episode.